After a mysterious plane crash, Li Tunan wakes up on an island that does not exist on any map. At first, he believes that the wild man who saved him is nothing more than a dangerous creature living beyond the rules of human society. But the more time Li Tunan spends with him, the more he realizes that this man has never tried to hurt him. In fact, he has repeatedly risked everything to protect him. While Li Tunan struggles to find a way back to civilization, he accidentally becomes the first person to teach this monster about fire, cooked food, and human kindness. Then a terrifying secret begins to emerge. This island is anything but ordinary, because even this incredibly powerful man fears a certain place on the island and refuses to let Li Tunan go anywhere near it. At the same time, the distance between them begins to change in ways that even Li Tunan cannot explain. He gives the mysterious man a name Os, inspired by the deep blue color of the ocean, but Li Tunan has no idea that the moment he gives Os a name is also the moment he becomes the most important person in Os's world. And as the hope of rescue grows weaker and weaker, Li Tunan begins to realize that the most frightening thing is not being trapped on the island. It is the possibility that one day, he may have to leave behind the person who has always stayed by his side. The owls, the snakes, and even the creatures of the forest were all leading in the same direction. Accompanied by a black panther, the mysterious man raced through the night, following every trace that Li Tunan had left behind. But when he reached the beach, the footprints suddenly disappeared. An hour earlier, Li Tunan had begun running a fever deep inside the wilderness. For the first time, he realized that the most terrifying thing was not the monsters. It was dying in a place where no one would ever know he had existed. In his feverish state, Li Tunan found himself thinking about the man he had tried so desperately to escape from. And then he admitted a truth that even frightened himself. Maybe he should never have left the mysterious man. Meanwhile, the tide began to rise, slowly swallowing the body of the unconscious Li Tunan. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself inside a strange building. There was a roof. There were walls. And there were signs of human civilization. The moment hope returned, he immediately began searching for more clues. Suddenly, he heard the sound of flowing water ahead. Following the sound, Li Tunan discovered a small stream running through the abandoned structure. He almost burst into tears when he realized it was fresh water. After days of struggling to survive, it was the most precious thing he had seen. But just as he reached toward the water, another hand suddenly grabbed him from beneath the surface. A strange creature let out a chilling laugh from the dark water. Li Tunan struggled in panic, convinced that this was the end. At that very moment, the mysterious man appeared and severed the creature's grip. Then, as he held Li Tunan tightly and carried him away from the water, he said the one sentence that made everything even more complicated. Mean. Li Tunan cried out as the mysterious man carried him straight out of the dark water. Behind them, the strange creature remained hidden beneath the surface. With just a single glance from the mysterious man, the creature immediately retreated. Li Tunan was completely stunned. He could not believe that there was something even more afraid of the mysterious man than he was. And for the first time, he found himself wondering, who exactly was this man? No matter what, this was already the second time the mysterious man had saved his life. In fact, from beginning to end, this man had never truly tried to hurt him. Embarrassed, Li Tunan quietly asked to be put down. He awkwardly whispered his first words of thanks since they had met. The mysterious man simply stared at him in silence for a long moment. But then, he noticed that Li Tunan's ankle was injured. Before Li Tunan could react, the mysterious man had already knelt down to examine the wound. The moment he tried to use his familiar method of treatment, Li Tunan panicked and stopped him. Flustered and embarrassed, he hurriedly tried to explain himself. Taking advantage of the moment, Li Tunan began asking question after question about the island, the creature in the water, and the world beyond. But all he received in return was the mysterious man's puzzled gaze. Finally, Li Tunan asked the question that mattered most. Was there still a way for him to leave this island? The mysterious man did not answer. He simply reached out and gently patted Li Tunan's head. Then he slowly said something that left Li Tunan speechless. Don't be afraid. I will take you home. For the first time since the plane crash, Li Tunan felt that he wanted to trust someone. But as they made their way back to the cave, a sense of unease gradually returned. This island seemed to be hiding far more secrets than he had imagined. And perhaps there were even more terrifying creatures here besides the one in the water. Even so, Li Tunan decided to stay by the mysterious man's side for now. Because at this moment, this man was his only chance of survival. What Li Tunan did not expect was that the mysterious man's way of showing concern was bringing back an entire bear for dinner. Li Tunan quickly realized that he had been moved far too soon the night before. Because the first breakfast he received was a bear that had just been torn apart. In an instant, blood had splattered all over him. Li Tunan immediately felt that his life had entered yet another tragic chapter. But after the initial shock, he realized that the real problem was not the food itself. The problem was that the mysterious man had apparently never heard of the concept of cooking. So, Li Tunan decided to launch the island's very first civilization reform. He started a fire right in front of the mysterious man. The other man's reaction was exactly like that of a child witnessing magic for the first time. Li Tunan insisted on cooking all of the food thoroughly. Within minutes, the delicious aroma spread throughout the forest. The mysterious man stared at the roasted meat with shining eyes. The moment he took his first bite, it seemed as though his entire world had changed. In the mysterious man's eyes, Li Tunan had become something close to a miracle. Meanwhile, Li Tunan unconsciously enjoyed the feeling of being admired. That was, until he realized he was feeling proud because he had been praised by a wild man. After the meal, his body finally regained some strength, but then another problem appeared. Li Tunan realized that he smelled absolutely terrible. From a wealthy heir, he felt as though he had become a homeless castaway on an island, so he tried asking the mysterious man about finding a place to wash up. To his surprise, the mysterious man seemed to understand. He led Li Tunan to a place no one would have expected. A natural hot spring hidden deep within the forest. For a moment, Li Tunan almost forgot that he was trapped on an island filled with dangers. But then the mysterious man stepped into the water and began removing his outer clothing. Li Tunan froze, realizing that this would be the first time in his life he had ever bathed with someone else. And just as he stepped into the hot spring, his footing suddenly slipped. That single misstep ended with Li Tunan being pulled straight into the mysterious man's arms. Amid the rising steam, they were so close that Li Tunan could hear the other man's breathing. And that was when Li Tunan realized something incredibly dangerous. He was starting to think that this man was far too handsome. Panicking, he immediately struggled to pull away, but his injured ankle caused him to lose his balance, and he nearly slipped beneath the water. The mysterious man instantly held him tighter, anxiously checking to see if he was hurt. That only made Li Tunan even more embarrassed, because this was the closest he had ever been to another man in his entire life. And even more alarming, this mysterious man's physique was simply too perfect. Li Tunan immediately entered what he mentally called survival jealousy mode, but his attention was soon drawn to the strange, foaming fruits floating in the spring. It turned out that the mysterious man was nothing like the uncivilized person Li Tunan had imagined. He was actually trying very seriously to help clean Li Tunan's injuries. The moment those rough hands held his ankle, Li Tunan's thoughts became a complete mess again. He kept reminding himself that this was just care and concern, nothing more. Unfortunately, his heartbeat refused to cooperate. After a long internal struggle, Li Tunan decided to give up and simply enjoy the hot spring. That was until he remembered an even more serious problem. His clothes were no longer wearable. In a moment of despair, Li Tunan realized that he might have no choice but to live like a primitive islander. But at that very moment, the mysterious man quietly draped a set of clean clothes over his shoulders, and when Li Tunan caught the faint scent lingering on the fabric, he suddenly realized that perhaps the most dangerous thing on this island was not the monsters after all. The next morning, Li Tunan woke up to the sounds of forest birds and a strange feeling he could not explain. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the mysterious man's face, far too close to his own. Li Tunan froze instantly, because he had absolutely no memory of why they had ended up sleeping so close together. Even more alarming, the mysterious man seemed to have just woken up as well and was staring at him intently. But what Li Tunan did not know was that something had happened the night before. While he was asleep, the mysterious man had sat beside him and watched over him all night. He had quietly adjusted Li Tunan's clothes, fixed his blanket, and guarded his sleep. Then, as though confirming something very important, the mysterious man gently touched his face. There was no longer just curiosity in his eyes. The next morning, Li Tunan decided to ignore the strange feelings in his heart and focus on survival. He quickly prepared supplies, gathered tools, and confidently declared that he would save himself. The mysterious man immediately agreed with surprising enthusiasm, causing Li Tunan to laugh despite himself. Their first goal was to search for signs of ships or aircraft, but the farther they traveled, the more Li Tunan realized that the chances of rescue were almost non-existent. He decided to build a massive distress signal on the beach. The mysterious man quietly helped him from beginning to end. Even so, Li Tunan continued trying to keep his distance. He kept reminding himself that the other person was still a grown man, and that those unreasonable feelings he had developed needed to stop immediately. Yet when he looked at the lonely distress signal stretching across the vast beach, he could not help feeling helpless. It was as if this island had no intention of letting anyone leave. At that moment, Li Tunan remembered the mysterious building and suggested that they return to investigate it. For the first time, the mysterious man immediately objected, not because he did not understand, but because he knew exactly how dangerous that place was. And as Li Tunan looked toward the distant structure, he suddenly realized something terrifying. Perhaps the island's greatest secret was directly connected to the person who had saved his life. As night fell, the sound of the waves and the campfire were the only things still connecting Li Tunan to his old world. But the traces of his earlier emotional breakdown were still visible on his face. Li Tunan tried to pretend that his tears had only been caused by exhaustion, and surprisingly, OS seemed to completely believe his awkward explanation. That unconditional trust only made Li Tunan feel more guilty than ever. Then he suddenly realized something he had never considered before. He had never even asked the name of the person who had saved his life. When he asked the question, OS simply looked back at him in confusion, and for the first time, Li Tunan understood that perhaps no one had ever given this man a name. The thought suddenly weighed heavily on his heart, because on this vast island, OS might have lived alone for far too long. Li Tunan reached out, took his hand, and decided to give him a name himself. Looking into those deep blue eyes, he could only think of the ocean, and that was how the name OS was born. From that moment on, he was no longer just the mysterious man. He had become someone with a name, a memory, and someone who would remember him. What Li Tunan did not realize was that he himself was slowly becoming the meaning of OS's existence. In the days that followed, he tried to build a new life on the island. He rebuilt his hope, even though he knew that the chances of rescue were almost non-existent. OS remained by his side, helping him with everything without ever complaining. Sometimes, Li Tunan wondered whether any of these efforts still had meaning, but then he realized that he did not truly want to give up, because every mark he left behind on this island was the last thread connecting him to his old world. And if that world could no longer reach him, then he would create a new world of his own. At that very moment, OS handed him a leaf as a small gift, and when Li Tunan saw OS's smile, he suddenly realized that perhaps being trapped on this island was no longer the thing he feared most. A mysterious island. A man without a name. And a bond that should never have existed. Is OS really just a wild man? Or is he hiding something far more dangerous? If rescue arrived tomorrow, would Li Tunan still want to leave this place? Leave a comment. Do you believe OS is actually human?